Kenny Green, big deal for as long as I can remember. Again, nerding out with recruiting nonsense. Pretty sure he was a 5-star kid, just an absolute mauler when he came into the program for Texas A&M. So he was all over the place throughout the process. I think the mock draft settled on him being like a fringe first round pick. Last week, even like early last summer, I feel like people were mocking him as an early top 10 type talent that could be guard, could be tackle. He could probably play anywhere on the line. So a lot of people were talking about how good he was going to be. And so it really surprised me when, I guess paralysis by way too much analysis, people overthought it and moved him down their boards or whatever. But NFL told us, hey, he's a mid first round, early first round kind of talent, and profiles as a guard to go that high is pretty incredible. So really love the talent, really love the pick. Texans needed everything. So good on them getting a home pick with Texas A&M there too. But Jahan Dotson, he was a fun wide receiver. I play in super nerdy like fantasy football leagues, and so I drafted him 2 years ago in round 45. Don't ask. And so I'm really excited that he's a first round pick. But so really it's odd because he does so many good things that are similar to Terry McLaurin. But in this day and age where teams are really not looking to pay their wide receivers, maybe the Commanders are just planning ahead and going, look, we're going to get a guy who dominates and separates. And even though he's smaller, he actually wins contested catches at an absurd rate for his size. And so, yeah, Dotson, I think it's a perfect fit. I'm not sure how long Wentz is actually going to be the quarterback, but that's a different problem. So I was really excited for that landing spot because I think McLaurin is actually old when he came into the league, and so they might not want to pay him the $25 million he's going to be asking for sooner than later.
Well, I'm not surprised that Zion Johnson was going to the Chargers. They needed a guard. They added so many pieces in the offseason, defensively, offensively. They needed to clean up certain parts of that offensive line. Now they add the guard, arguably the best guard at that spot in this year's draft class. So I'm not surprised Zion Johnson was going to the Chargers. What were your thoughts, Ray, with the trade that surprised everybody? A.J. Brown, obviously the Eagles trading up and trading down, trading with the Tennessee Titans for A.J. Brown, and they draft Treylon Burks. What did you think about that move?
Yeah, first, Travis, you're not going to have to talk a 45th round of a draft, Jahan Dotson. I mean, you're speaking my language, so let's get offline here. But the Titans, it was interesting because I had the Titans before the draft as a team that had maybe a 2-year window to make a run. That offense, Henry's getting up there. He's got some mileage. You saw the injury coming up, right? They had Brown. But you took a look at that team a week ago and you said, hey, in 2 years, the offense is going to look pretty different, right? I'm not sure that window's still going to be open for these guys. Then they went ahead and traded Brown. I get the whole, hey, you don't want to pay this guy $25 million. So you get another big bodied physical wide receiver. But Burks has a lot of questions to me. It's, that offense, you don't know if it's because they had no quarterback over there at Arkansas. If that's why he doesn't run a full route tree and they just wanted to get the ball in his hands because he's their best athlete, or if he's just, just can't do it, right? Maybe he doesn't have that fluidity that you see in someone like a Chris Olave. The other thing that wasn't talked about enough, in my opinion, leading up to the draft with Burks is he's got some, weight control issues, right? They were talking about, he was up to, 240 after the regular season and had to get back down for the combine and so forth or whatever else. I mean, when was the last time we really talked about a wide receiver who had to control his weight working out for a long period of time in this league? It doesn't happen. Kelvin Benjamin was good for a year or so, and that's about it. So there's question marks there. Again, it's just things you didn't see that you wanted to see. You didn't see that he can't do it. You just didn't see it on his tape as far as being a complete receiver. So it's definitely a risk on the part of Tennessee. And so for the Eagles, I mean, shoot, you come out of Thursday night with Jordan Davis, A.J. Brown, and you still have your 2 firsts next year. After robbing the Saints, you go ahead and now you add a number 1 receiver, health pending. to your team and still keep those first next year, that's really good GMing right there.
We actually have a Titans fan in this panel, Travis. You were mentioning you mentioned the Titans a lot. We talked about A.J. Brown when he had you on the show and Derrick Henry among those other guys. So what was your reaction to your star receiver getting traded?
I was actually on draft night. I was on a few different live stream shows and stuff, and I was in the middle of a show and I didn't have the TV in front of me, and the guys just all went like, "What just happened?" Like all at the same time, and I'm like, "What?" Like they know I'm a Titans fan. I was like, "Well, AJ Brown's no longer a Titan, by the way." So so that was a shock to say the least.
You know, it's so funny because I saw it happening, and I told Speedy. They said something crazy just happened, and I saw a trade. And I say, how much you want to bet the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown? He goes, I said, go to Adam Schefter. And what did you see on the post? Adam Schefter says A.J. Brown was traded from Tennessee to the Eagles. I started laughing.
To put it in perspective, guys, I'm a Giants fan, so I was enjoying the 2 draft picks. As you guys have mentioned, it was a great scenario all around for the Giants. Then all of a sudden, the Eagles trade up, they draft Jordan Davis, and then all of a sudden they say, they trade for A.J. Brown. So that essentially just dampen the mood. I know, Ray, you're a Cowboys fan, so that went definitely not ideal. And Travis, you being a Titans fan, losing your star receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough because, I mean, like, we have Nick Westbrook-Akina and not a whole lot else. I mean, it's just like they already needed another wide receiver. And so
they picked up Robert Woods, did they not?
Yeah, but he's like older and coming off an injury. It's like, that's cool, man. Like, he's not even going to be the same player either. Like, so I'm not sold on their offense this year, which stinks because, like, Treylon Burks, he's really talented, but there's going to be all this pressure on him to immediately just slot in as this A.J. Brown copy. And A.J. Brown was like this big slot at Ole Miss back in the day. I mean, he slid outside when DK Metcalf missed some time, but he was mainly that big slot in that role that Treylon Burks primarily did at Arkansas. And it was a lot of schematic production from both of them throughout their process. I guess college process. Burks is just weird though, like a freaking unicorn. Like he's 230 plus pounds, and he was a slot guy. Bunch of screen production, go balls where he mossed people. Like I don't even know how to compare him to just about anybody. And so, just a really odd prospect that a lot of people comp to AJ Brown, but he really wasn't even that. Dude, like does boar hunting, like with his bare hands. Like that's like dude's. He's a little weird.
Maybe he's got to hang out with Jonas Cespedes.
Yeah. I'm excited though, just because cap wise, it's obviously a win, and so I guess for the future, this could be great.
Go ahead, Lance. You were going to say something.
Well, I guess the biggest comparison you can get, and they're not athletically the same, but the way that they use him at Arkansas, compare him to Deebo Samuel for a minute. Like athletically, he's probably closer to AJ Brown and what they actually want to do with him in Tennessee. That's a perfect replacement for him. But Treylon Burks was a guy that I was a lot lower on. I was surprised to see him go that high and to see the Titans let go of AJ Brown, who I think is a top 10 receiver in this league. When you have good quarterback play around him, like. To see them move on, I understand, the salary cap implications and stuff like that. You want to reset the position and get a guy that profiles similarly to what you want to do with AJ Brown. Like it didn't make a lot of sense to me, and then to see them lose AJ Brown, and I'm not a Titans fan. I just love AJ Brown.
Well, Trevor Penning going number 19. Nobody was surprised about that. There was so many experts we've had on said that the Saints really love Trevor Penning, and that if he fell to them at number 19, which more than likely he was going number 19. Kenny Pickett, John, what were your thoughts of Kenny Pickett being the first quarterback off the board to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Kudos to Pittsburgh. They pulled off the biggest misinformation campaign ever because it seems like every year we go into the draft and we're like, we know exactly who the Steelers are picking. Last year was everybody knew they loved Najee and they were just sitting there waiting for Najee to go. It feels like every year we have a really good idea who they like and who they're going to target, especially there in that first round when they have that pick. And this year it was Malik Willis. They loved Malik Willis and everything about him. And under the radar, under the card table, was Kenny Pickett the entire time. And so I wanted to kind of question it at first. I have my own concerns with Pickett, and I know that a lot of people feel like he's the most pro-ready quarterback in the class, and I can kind of see that in terms of the offense that they played at Pitt and, his skill set. But I had some issues with his consistency in structure. A lot of his highlights, when you turn them on, are out of structure, and he's improvising to make plays, which is fine. That's a good trait to have. I just want to see that more consistently inside the pocket, because you kind of need that to win in the league. But if anybody has any idea about what this guy is made of and how ready he is, it's going to be Pittsburgh, because they're working in the same facility. So overall, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's going to be bad, because, I've been wrong about quarterbacks before, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, yeah, they know better than anybody.
I hope they know better than anybody, because, before that, the biggest reach in the draft to me was Trevor Penning, but that lasted for about 10 minutes. I had Trevor Penning like maybe from 40 to 50. I don't exactly number my board that way, but at least with Penning, and I'll get to Pickett too in a second, but with Penning, I saw a guy that was too stiff and tight in the hips there really for tackle, but then, kind of too tall and linear, not flexible enough inside. I draft him. I don't know where I'm going to put him to say, okay, here's my first round pick. I can mold this guy into a Pro Bowler in 3 years. I just didn't see that with Penning at all.
14
I really thought
holding penalties too last year.
Yeah, I don't, and he's not facing great competition, right? And it almost sounds a lot like a guy who was taken about 5 picks later, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I really was not a Penning fan, and I know he was kind of connected with the Saints. I wasn't surprised when it happened, but that was a big reach to me. And as for Pickett, I mean, he better be pro ready at this point. He's like turning 24 in like 6 weeks, and was in college for like 6 years. I share your concerns there. It's like, what are you doing in structure as opposed to, outside the pocket when plays break down, or you just, against, UNC or something, right? I want to see stuff that translates. And I really didn't see that in his game. He kind of, reminded me of, and again, a little bit Penn State flavor here, but kind of like a slightly bigger Trace McSorley with a little bit better timing in his game. I wasn't seeing it. I really didn't see it with any of the quarterbacks in this class for first round picks. But again, the Steelers have much more resources than I do. And of course, if you have conviction about a guy, you go ahead and take him there. But I wouldn't have done it. And maybe that's just me.
As everybody knows, we're talking to our draft panel: Lance Sanderson from Mile High Huddle, Travis May from Rotoviz, John Vogel from Football Sapient, and Ray Cotto from All 22. Kansas City moves up at 21 to arguably jump on, I think, probably the most underrated corner in this year's draft in Trent McDuffie. What did you think, Lance, McDuffie going to the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, being a draft analyst and a Broncos analyst for Mile High Huddle, watching the Chiefs trade up for Trent McDuffie was my second worst nightmare. And the first one was watching them trade up for Jameson Williams. So thank you to Detroit for that. But Trent McDuffie is such a great fit for what they want to do. Great in man, a great fluidity. He can play on the inside. They need a slot cornerback. He can play the safety position as well. Like the fit and the value that they got there, they didn't give a whole lot to move up and go and get this kid. He was my third cornerback on the board after Stingley. I saw Gardner number one. But to see those guys go and fill a massive need, like that secondary in Kansas City has been a mess for a long time. When you're starting Steven Nelson and Bashad Breeland at the cornerback position, like that's not a great cornerback duo that you have on the outside. To go and get a guy that can play all over the formation in a Trent McDuffie, like he's super physical too. Like that's something you see with all these Washington cornerbacks and safeties coming out. I mean, go back to Marcus Peters. You've got Kyler Gordon later in this class as well. McDuffie, like these guys, they know how to tackle. They know how to cover. They're highly athletic. And with the scheme fit, the versatility he has for the Chiefs, that was my second worst scenario for the Broncos. But to see them do that, I love the pick.
If Jameson Williams would have gotten to the Chiefs, you would have seen the fantasy overreactions be higher than Hilaire taken in the first round 2 years ago.
Family-friendly, double-barreled middle finger to the Chiefs if they would have managed to pull that off. Like, seriously, I would have hated that.
Well, I'm not surprised that they probably did try to pull it off. They just couldn't land it. But anyways, 22 and 23, Quay Walker goes to Green Bay. I think Green Bay, no matter how good these defensive players that Green Bay got, I still think they needed a wide receiver so very bad. I would have traded those 2 picks or traded one of these picks and another pick to move up to try to get one of those wide receivers. I think they're putting themselves in a bad position going into the season.